What? Oh my gosh, no!
Best place to be like between.
I know, but I don't want to mess with
Test.
All our students over there.
Okay. Yep. You're talking like on the edge or right here?
Yeah, no, are they supposed to fill up over there? And
Oh,
then
I'm sorry. I got you. Yeah. Middle school over here, high school over here. Yep. Yep.
make sure I can see my people in here.
Yeah.
People get to stand.
They're
Remember
sitting
last
here.
year we
They're,
ended up being kind of awkward because we were walking a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out where I can.
Yep. Yeah. So they're going to be, I believe, coming from the back or the middle here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Maybe it will.
Just so I know when I should be like preparing. If you don't, that's fine.
I do. That's my problem. I think the kids are handling it. No pressure. It's on the school up the flag.
Okay, not even joking. Like it's so
Everyone will be silent. Everyone will listen to the player.
No pressure.
You wouldn't
Okay,
believe
you
some of the
promised.
things I
Okay,
say.
you're gonna cut off the drum roll, and then I'll just go one Mississippi two.
Boom, the drum roll will stop. And then the appearance, if they look like they've just taken a step back, they're not going.
Can I watch them, or am I supposed to look for
Oh,
them?
watch. We need to watch them so you know what's happening. Not a big deal.
Society, I would like to welcome you to the 2017 Veterans Day program. Please rise for the presentation of the color. Remain standing, face the flag, and place your right hand over your heart as the Harrisburg High School All-State Choir sings our national anthem.
Well, you may be seated, but I see that you guys already are. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, an armistice, or temporary cessation of hostilities, was declared between the Allied nations and Germany in the First World War, then known as the Great War. Commemorated as Armistice Day, beginning the following year, November 11th, became a legal federal holiday in the United States in 1938. In the aftermath of World War II and the Korean War, Armistice Day became Veterans Day, a holiday dedicated to American veterans of all wars. At this time, the high school choir, under the direction of Elizabeth Gould and Carrie Vosberg, will sing America the Beautiful and Keep the Home Fires Burning.
This moment It is now my privilege to introduce Wayne and Sharon Mitchell from our local VFW to award a group of Harrisburg Middle High School students for their efforts in both the Patriots Pen and Voice of Democracy essay competitions. Over the past month, these students have expressed their patriotism through both verbal and written word. By moving on to the local competition, they will have the opportunity to compete for thousands of dollars in scholarships from the Veterans of Foreign Wars organization. Please help me in welcoming our Lincoln County VFW representatives, Wayne and Sharon Mitchell.
Good morning. I'm Wayne Mitchell from the VFW post in Canton. I'm the quartermaster there. And this is my wife, Sharon. She's secretary for the auxiliary at our post. So it's good to be here to help you celebrate Veterans Day on this nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. We are here to award the reward, if you will, the winners in the Voice of Democracy and the Patriots Pen programs. The Voice of Democracy being for grades 9 through 12, and the Patriots Pen grades 6 through 8. We have chosen, the Canton VFW and Ladies Auxiliary have chosen to offer separate programs in the Harrisburg North and the Harrisburg South middle schools so that we would be able to acknowledge more winners. So because we had an outstanding participation in the Voice of Democracy and the middle school, the Patriots Pen, we are going to ask, because we know it's a long way down, we are going to just call out the names of those who will be receiving awards in no particular order, and ask to save a little time if you would come forward and be up here so that when your name is called, you would be here to receive your award. The Voice of Democracy, the theme this year was Our Hope for the Future. We're asking these students to please come forward. Caitlin Hilges, Grace Anderson, Ava Bennett, and Brooklyn Gross. In the Patriots Pen, the theme this year was America's Gift to My Generation. These young students were asked to write essays of 300 to 400 words. And I don't mind telling you, with so many participants, it was difficult for the teacher and for our judges to make selections. From Harrisburg North, if these people would, these students would please come forward. Ava Moore, Kate Barbush, Teague Bruns, Reese Duncan, and Maggie Cheddar. From Harrisburg South, Evelina Gladys, Angelina Howell, Ariana Rios, Bo Anderson, Maggie McQueen. We will begin our presentations with the Voice of Democracy, and we want you to know that, as the young lady stated, these local winners have been submitted for district competition. That judging will take place in the next 2 weeks. Then they go on for state competition. Each of the district winners in the Voice of Democracy and the Patriots Pen are our guests at Pier in January, when the state winners will be announced. While they are there, they meet Governor Dugard, they meet the Chief Justice of our court. They are recognized at the session, the legislative session. In addition, we have our awards luncheon, and the parents of the winner are invited to come along. And all that information will be presented. So we are hopeful that one from our district or from your school is selected. Okay, in the Voice of Democracy, Wayne will present to you your certificate and the check. I will read what the certificate says. Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States and its auxiliary, Voice of Democracy Certificate of Merit presented to, in recognition of excellence in the Voice of Democracy audio essay competition, you have been designated an outstanding spokesperson for freedom. And the first place is $50, $40, $30, and $20. And as I read your name, if you will come forward, Wayne gets to present that to you. Okay, fourth place, Ava Bennett. Third place, Caitlin Hilges. Second place, Grace Anderson. First place, Brooklyn Gross. Okay, we're going to do Harrisburg North. Fifth place, Kate Barbush. Fourth place, Teague Bruns. Third place, Ava Moore. Second place, Reese Duncan. First place, Maggie Cheddar.
just an empty.
Wow, I even gave him an empty folder. Sorry about that. Okay, Harrisburg South. 5th place, Bo Anderson. 4th place, Ariana Rios. 3rd place, Evelina Gladys. 2nd place, Maggie McQueen. 1st place, Angelina Howell. Our congratulations to all, and we want to especially thank Dr. Amelin for spearheading all of our the work year, and Dr. McKee and the teachers in the middle school. Thank you so much.
Our guest speaker for today's program is Staff Sergeant Ryan Hansen. Ryan W. Hansen is originally from Madison, South Dakota, where he attended high school and Dakota State University. In 2000, he enlisted in the South Dakota Army National Guard as a combat engineer. Shortly thereafter, from 2003 to 2005, he was deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. After his return from deployment, he was promoted to sergeant and became a non-commissioned officer. In 2016 to 2017, he was deployed to Kuwait and Iraq in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. Returning from active duty this past October, Sergeant Hansen has been awarded the Iraq Commission Medal with 2 campaign stars, a Meritorious Service Medal, an Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, 5 Reserve Component Achievement Medals, a Driver and Mechanic Badge, and Driver Wheeled Vehicles, a Combat Action Badge, as well as many other honors. He is a member of the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Enlisted Association, and Army Engineer Association. Hansen is a sergeant in the Army National Guard and an assistant warehouse manager for Montgomery's Furniture. He is married to Mrs. Kate Hansen, a 1st grade teacher at Harrisburg Liberty Elementary, and he also has 2 children within the Harrisburg School District. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Ryan Hansen to the podium.
First, I want to thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to be the guest speaker. What I'm going to do is a little icebreaker. In the Army, we say "huh," okay? Which means yes, I understand, okay? So on the count of 3, everybody say "huh," okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Huh! All right, that's my icebreaker. Okay, I want to introduce my family. My wife, Kate, like they said, is 1st grade teacher at Liberty Elementary. My oldest daughter, Alyssa, she is a freshman here. And the youngest one is Kyra. She's 18 months old. I enlisted in the Army National Guard on August 28th, 2000. So I've been in roughly a little over 17 years. I enlisted with Company B, 153rd Engineer Battalion. That was out of Madison, South Dakota, who now it's transformed over to the 211th Engineer Company. I spent about 10 years with them. Also, I've been with, currently now I'm with HHC Company, 153rd Engineer Battalion. That's the unit that I just deployed with, got back. I've been back for about 6 weeks. So, a combat engineer. What is a combat engineer? Well, we get to blow things up. We get to use explosives and blow things up. That's pretty darn cool when you get to do that. You don't always get to do that, but it's fun. Today I'm going to talk about a little bit. I'm going to compare my first deployment compared to my second deployment. But before I do that, let's go grab my bag. I've been in the military 17 years, like I said. I've been in 4 different uniforms. I've been in 4 different uniforms, okay? This is my first uniform. This is the BU. I was probably in that uniform up until, I think, like 2007, I believe. Okay. This is the uniform that I deployed 2003 through 2005. Wore that just for deployment. This is the ACU, which we currently are transforming over to the multicam. So eventually you'll see everybody in the multicam. So I just want to show everybody just the different uniforms that I've been in since my military career. Thanks, Melissa. All right, first thing I want to talk about is technology. So back when I deployed the first time, the technology definitely wasn't as great as it is today. We kind of had an MWR tent, which had phones and also has computers. And we'd have roughly, I think it was about 30 minutes. You could only be on for about 30 minutes. Once your time was done, somebody else took their turn. So I would buy calling cards, phone cards. My family and friends would send it to me. So I remember getting a 100-minute phone card, okay? So you make a phone call, and it says, you have 60 minutes left, or you have 60 minutes. I'm like, well, what happened to my other 40 minutes? So, you know, it always would, you'd always lose minutes for some reason. I don't know why that is. But it would run off a satellite dish, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. So on my second deployment, I brought my iPhone and iPad. And somebody gave me a puck to use overseas. Puck is it's just like a little, kind of like a hotspot. And so I'd use that. I'd have to go to there's a little shop there. You'd have to buy gigabytes. So I bought 50 or 100, whichever was the cheapest. And I spent roughly anywhere from 25 to 40 bucks. So that's pretty good. If you think about it, 50 gigabyte or 100 gigabyte, you're never really going to run out. And that was in Kuwait. So in Iraq, it was a little bit different. You could buy the hub and have that in your room. And that was roughly, I believe, it was like 30 bucks a week or $100 a month. So it was a little bit more expensive, and the connection was not as good as Kuwait. So So how I make my phone calls back home, there's a app out there called WhatsApp, and you can use that to make phone calls home. And you could also FaceTime, which is pretty cool. You could text, so you could do anything. So, you know, it's kind of cool that I could do everything that you guys can do in the States over in Iraq or Kuwait. So the MWR tents and the US cell in Kuwait and Iraq would have free Wi-Fi. So if you didn't really want to purchase any data, you could go to the MWR tent or USO. They also had games, and you could play cards. They had like, I think like Nintendo 64 or Wii or stuff like that. I'll just touch briefly on, so the technology, with the technology increasing, the military is definitely taking advantage of that. So they're increasing their weapons capabilities, security system. I can't get into too much detail, but it's pretty darn cool. So it's definitely, they're going a step in the right direction. Next, I'll touch briefly on my job. For my first deployment, like I said, we were an engineer unit. We had vertical capabilities, which we had like dump trucks, dozers. We had something called a C, for all you old folks, you probably know what that is. But it's kind of like a backhoe. So we had those capabilities. So I was a 5-ton operator, so I'd haul gravel, rock, and stuff like that. We do kind of like fob improvements. That was one of our tasks. Another task that we had was route clearance. Route clearance, so route clearance is you're out there looking for the roadside bombs. Not the safest nor the funnest job that you'll ever have. Probably the most dangerous job over there. So I'll talk a little bit about a little bit of story. We were out on patrol September 7th, 2004. I still remember the date and everything that happened. So we were out on patrol. I'm in a vehicle called the Husky, which is a big old mine detector on wheels, which is kind of cool. So anyhow, we were out looking for roadside bombs, and I end up finding one there. It blew up on me, okay? So anyhow, it blew up. The vehicle that I was in was made to take a blast. So all the equipment that we had was special equipment for route clearance. So it was protective. Anyhow, I hit the roadside bomb, okay? I had 3 flat tires and the windshield is like 4 inches thick on that, and it was shattered. But it was still intact. So you can definitely tell that I was safe, and because of that protective equipment. So anyhow, we pulled into this approach to figure out what we were gonna do. And anyhow, we pulled the 360 security. Anyhow, we were sitting there, and I was in a RG31 icing my neck, because I probably had a little bit of a whiplash from going from 20 miles an hour to a dead stop. So we pulled into this approach, and icing my neck, and anyhow, the guy goes, "Get down." So I look, here comes a vehicle towards our vehicle, and anyhow, it blew up 10 feet behind our vehicle. In the military, we call it a VBIED, Vehicle Borne IED. Pretty much is what it is, a suicide bomber in a vehicle. And their main job is to, kill anybody in the military, take as much collateral as possible. So that happened in one day. So obviously September 7th, 2004 was not it was not a good day. So that's a little bit of the story that I want to share with everybody. But I still talk about it today. With PTSD and everything, most people keep that bottled inside. I like to talk about it a little bit, so that it helps me. My unit was also tasked with tower guard. So we'd sit in a tower for like 8 hours, guarding the perimeter of the camp. It wasn't fun by any means, but it was to keep everybody safe. So that was another task. That's kind of it. That's kind of sums up my first deployment. This last deployment I was on, I'm part of an engineer battalion, so we're in charge of engineer projects. We'd have new projects, old projects. As far as an engineer, just think an engineer, your electricians, your plumbers, your carpenters, people that do the dirt work. Those are all your engineers. That's all the engineer assets that we have. So my specific job was Kuwait ground movements. So I was in charge of getting ground movements from the different units that were underneath of us. I would keep track on the board when they leave and when they return. Just think like Kuwait. You think we have bad drivers here? Kuwait's 10 times worse. They actually have a speed limit. Do they obey it? No, they do not obey it. The cops, I think they're too afraid to pull people over. It's definitely it's not like it's here. It's crazy. It's crazy driving in Kuwait. Not safe at all. That's probably one of the most risks that we had was driving in Kuwait. As you can see, my first deployment was a little bit more stressful than my second one. My first deployment, I was always on edge, always on the edge of my seat due to the high stress. I felt like I was always in survival mode. So I kind of feel like I'm adapting a little bit quicker this time than I was last, due to the fact maybe I had a little bit of a slight case of PTSD when I first returned home. But this time, it's a little different, especially when you get to communicate and know what's going on back home. Third, kind of want to talk about the time frame for the deployment. My first deployment, I deployed, we had to report, I think, December 1st, 2003. And we returned home, I think it was March 1st, 2005. So you can see that's quite a few months. About a little over 15 months. We spent roughly 3 months at our mobilization site for training. The training was intense, long days. Just say it wasn't very much fun. That's probably the worst part of the deployment, honestly, is the mob site. We had, in the military, we call it BOG, boots on ground. So we were over there 1 year to the date. So we were in Iraq/Kuwait for 1 year. And then roughly, it was roughly about 2 weeks at demobilization site, which is the same as your mobilization site. Same area. Our mobilization site was Fort Carson, Colorado, for the first one. My last deployment lasted just shy of 11 months. And that was, we spent roughly about 2 months at mobilization site in Texas. And then it was roughly boots on ground for 8.5 months. And then demobilization was roughly about 2 weeks, a little less. As you heard, my last deployment was a little bit shorter than the first, which I believe is easier on the soldier and the families. I'm definitely glad for the shorter deployments, I can tell you that. I guarantee you my wife would probably agree. I want to talk a little bit about the temperature in Kuwait. So the temperature averaged roughly 120 degrees during the summertime. That's hot, whether it's dry heat or not. There is some humidity over there, but that's pretty hot, especially when you have to wear your uniform, So in Kuwait, it's kind of like South Dakota. The wind blows all the time. So can you imagine a hot summer day in South Dakota? Just think humidity high. Go outside, take a blow dryer, blow it in your face, and then add a little stain to it. That's what it's like in Kuwait. So, the positive side is that at least we have AC. I don't know how we survive without the air conditioning. I'll just touch briefly on just some of the sacrifices that I've made in my military career. I've missed birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, graduations, holidays, funerals, parties. I missed both of my daughters' first steps. When I deployed the first time, Alyssa was 9 months old, and when I returned, she turned 2. So I missed everything from 9 months old until she turned 2. So that's pretty tough. First steps, first words. Kyra was, I think, 7 months old when I deployed this last time. 7 months, and she just turned 18 months in October. I returned at the end of September. So I missed everything from 7 months until roughly about 18 months. So that's kind of hard. The good thing is they're young enough, they won't remember. Another thing, sacrifice, I give up my weekends and part of the summer due to annual training. So there's many more, but that's just a few sacrifices that I've made as being a soldier. But it's worth it. It's worth it in the long run. It's an honor to be part of the South Dakota Army National Guard. People look up to you, and I know my daughters look up to me. So I want to thank you for having me as a guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen, for your service to our country, this community, and our school district. The Harrisburg Band will now perform the service songs. All veterans are encouraged to stand during your respective song. Veterans Day is a day set aside to show our appreciation to all veterans for the sacrifices they have made to keep our country free. So on this day, we must not forget those who have made so many sacrifices for our freedoms. As a tribute to our veterans, we would like to welcome to the stage last year's Voice of Democracy competition winner, Maddie Van Voorst. to give her speech entitled, "What Veterans Day Means to Me."
The theme for my year was My Responsibility to America. An old man sits in his cushioned recliner near the window, photos of his past laid out on his lap. Alzheimer's prevents him from remembering what he ate earlier that day, his grandchildren's names, and even sometimes that his beloved wife has passed away. Yet, as he sits there, he remembers riding in a B-32 bomber, watching out the window as his comrades were shot down, and getting stitched up by a drunken doctor at an emergency camp. That night, his granddaughter stops by to visit him. She listens patiently as he tells her the same stories she's heard since she was young. She even fills in details for him when his mind starts to falter. When it is time for her to go, she kisses his forehead and promises to bring her children along next time she visits. But that night, the old man passes away, and his great-grandchildren never get to hear his stories again. As Americans, we are blessed to be born into a country made free by the sacrifices of the many who have given up their freedoms in order to fight for us. In the words of John Kennedy, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. We, as Americans, have the responsibility to learn, honor the stories of our veteran heroes. The responsibility to learn the stories of our veteran heroes demands that we take the time to understand their actions and experiences. As stated by English philosopher George Santayana, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Learning about history in school is only the first step. Truly learning about our history requires us to study the people who created it. Unless we take the time to understand the reasoning behind the actions they took, we can only judge them by the results of their actions. In doing so, we not only miss the opportunity to comprehend the immensity of the sacrifices they made, but we also are unable to appreciate the wisdom and tenacity of our soldiers. If we remain ignorant to the honorable qualities they display, we risk failing to recognize our responsibility to honor their stories. Hearing about a group of soldiers who ran back towards the enemy line to save a fallen comrade is inspiring. But hearing about the terror they overcame, the pain they endured, and the strength they drew from one another is life-changing. Once we examine the world through the eyes of those who have lost and won so much, we are gifted with insight that changes our perspective on the world we live in. The bravery and selflessness of our veterans have and continue to demonstrate has the power to uplift generations of people. It is my privilege as his great-granddaughter, but also my responsibility as an American to share the stories of my great-grandfather, Dick Dykstra. He was a navigator in World War II, brother to 2 soldiers who went missing in action during that same war, and a father to 7 children, and a grandfather and a great-grandfather to many more. I will proudly share his stories with others, just as I hope all of you will share the stories of the veterans you have been blessed enough to know in your lives. Thank you.
Thank you for attending today's Veterans Day ceremony. A special thank you to the HHS Band and Choir for providing the music for today's ceremony, to the American Legion for their service and for serving as the color guard, and to the Lincoln County chapter of the VFW for speaking, and of course, to our today's guest speaker, Mr. Ryan Hansen. Please stand for the retirement to the colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please allow our veterans and their families to exit first, and for those that are in that group, please join us for cake and punch out in the commons. High school students, you will be dismissed by Mr. Rogers shortly. Middle schools, you'll be dismissed shortly as well. Thank you.